Yeah.
Y'all said EBT.
Like,
We don't use the EBT.
yeah, do y'all have like a food program here
No, we
for
don't.
discount?
We don't. Sorry.
What about senior citizens? Because I'm over 50.
Not enough.
I don't look at it.
No, we don't have seniors. Sorry.
Hey, if I wanted to take some of them wangs with me, is that an extra charge? Wang. We say, up and down south, we say wang. No wang.
Wine?
Wang.
Chicken wing.
Like one wang.
But yeah, he said,
Oh,
yeah, we
that's,
say
yeah,
wing.
it's $10 for 8 pieces.
It's $10 for 8 pieces?
For 15.
That ain't bad. Oh, okay.
So guys, I was watching this video on Instagram, and what happens is that some people are talking about restaurant fatigue, and especially how it relates to black people. So there's this video online about, this person like at a restaurant, and he has a bunch of kids, maybe like they're his grandkids. So he's like saying things like, is there like is there a senior discount program? How much do you charge for wings really? And almost like maybe he wants to get like 1 or 2 wings and pay like $1 or something like that. And also too, just trying to like really like hustle a lower price and other things like that. So I do want to talk about this a little bit, that, we have to just be honest with this, that I did grow up in Guilford, Connecticut. So it's not just really a black thing. That happens in a lot of communities. Like when I was in middle school, there was a bunch of kids, who were all white, and they went down to like the Friendlies, and they kind of completely trashed the place. They walked down the bill, and they would do things like pour like their milkshakes all over like the dispensers and create a really, really big mess, really. And what happens with Guilford in Guilford, Connecticut is that, there's a lot of rich white families, a lot of rich Italian families. So you can't tell me that, there is a thing where it's just, black people. I'll give you another story about privileged people in a second, but there's also like those stories about Asians as well, really. Like a lot of times, people talk about how when there's like Asian tour groups and stuff like that, sometimes they go to an all-you-eat buffet, they just want to like scramble and get everything really, and I saw like a video about this a few years ago on YouTube, that usually, when, there's a lot of Asian or Chinese tour groups, they would just like scramble, eat all the all-you-can-eat buffet stuff, because when you go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, and let's say there's 10 people who want ribs, really, you don't eat all the ribs, really. I remember when I was in college, I'd have like 12 egg omelets, and I remember like some people talking to me saying, hey, you can't have that because there's other people behind you and stuff like that too. You got to be considerate of others. I remember like one time, my girlfriend in high school, she went to the prom, really, and one of her friends, and it was like we're all going together, really, and with her and a bunch of her friends, really. So there was this guy who was like saying, okay, here's my debit card information, here's my credit card, I'm gonna pay for everybody's dinner. And this was at like a very, very fancy upscale restaurant in Guilford, Connecticut, really. So I remember how, I just, had a burger ordered with extra cheese, extra bacon. I ordered a couple non-alcoholic drinks, some desserts and whatever, really. So I remember like how this guy was really, really generous, but I put everything on, but how I kind of took advantage, really. So there is like, issues with restaurant etiquette, even that I suffer with. But, a lot of people kind of wonder why when it comes to black people, where does this kind of come from? Like the issue of hustling meals or hustling lower prices. There's also an issue of that sometimes you have people walk out on bills, or sometimes you see like the black mamas. Sometimes, not all of them, but sometimes you see, there's like that famous video of this black woman who has a bunch of her black friends, really, and they're expecting the man to pay for it, and they're saying things like, nobody wants to date a broke nigga or whatever, so we want, you got to pay the bill and other things like that. And then there's also like, sometimes Chicago or other areas, sometimes there's a black-owned restaurant, people trash it, or people do shootings or whatever in it and stuff like that, really. So where does kind of like the attitude of ungratefulness, where does the attitude of not respecting workers, where does the attitude of gold-digging men kind of come from? And I think that it's ultimately an entitlement culture, really. And also it's also like gender roles and racial roles and other things like that. But it's mostly because America is a culture of entitlement. That, whenever I went to a restaurant as a kid, really, I always liked going with my grandmother because, sometimes, I remember like one time I was in middle school And I really love pepperoni pizza. So I remember like, having pepperoni pizza 3 or 4 days in a row because I would tell her things like, I don't like Subway. I remember saying I was allergic to Subway when I wasn't. I meant to say I just don't like Subway or whatever. Really. So I remember like, take advantage of her a little bit. Or sometimes, when I went to restaurants, my grandmother would be okay with me ordering everything that I wanted really. But I remember like, one time when I was a kid, I went to a restaurant with my dad really, and he was being cheap, and he was like saying like order off the kids menu, and then I remember getting frustrated and saying, I want to have water and bread. And my dad said like, he punched the table in front of everybody, causing the waitress to scream and whatever, and said like, if you weren't here, if she wasn't here, I would smack you. But it was also because some parents do that to their kids as well, really, where they're growing adults, growing boys, and you want to have them have the cheapest meal possible because you want to be cheap, or be like, you don't stand up for yourself, so I'm going to disrespect you and make you eat like just eat like the smallest thing really. But yeah, it's an American culture of entitlement. So like I give you examples of me, but it's not just really a black thing really. And if you really want to even think about it, that I think that when you look at slavery in the other days, there's always, or even like look at job roles with black people in the past, really, like what's always happened with black people, that they're always expected to have high expectations. In slavery, they had to have high quotas, or else they would get like shot, beaten, or dismembered. Or you can look at like after slavery, like you go to an all black restaurant and you're white really, and you want to try out their food, or there's black people working in white restaurants and they have to do a great job. They're expected to have perfection really, because it kind of goes down to that role of black people have to have higher standards. If they don't have high standards in their work performance, as they say, last hired, first fired. So, the entitlement has kind of been something that's happened because of black racism. And then also too, you look at black exploitation films or the rap culture, the hip hop culture, there's always that type of wanting the royal treatment, everybody's supposed to do things for you. Everybody's supposed to kiss your ass. Everybody's supposed to just bow down to you, So, when you see rap videos of rappers, going to clubs, drinking everything, rap videos of, people just having lavish meals or trying to be like pimps having lavish meals, that influences culture. That influences, hey, I want to go to restaurants. I'm going to eat excessively, or I'm going to restaurants and order excessive wine. Or when I go to a restaurant, I'm going to hustle really, because, part of black culture is hustling, surviving. That's what it was for a lot of people, like through history, because obviously when there wasn't a lot of jobs, you saw the Italian mafia and other things, in history as well, like break the law and do whatever really, and also too, when you watch black exploitation films or rap films, or rap videos and other things like that, there's always an issue of hustling. So that kind of stems in the culture. That's why you kind of see things like people walking out on bills, or that's kind of why you see also when it comes to gender roles of women expecting men to pay the bill, or women saying something like, oh, what if a man should treat you out for dinner? No, that's not how it goes nowadays. You have to treat out the 5 or 6 BT 2000s or 3000s, as Tommy Sotomayor says this as well really. Or sometimes you go to a restaurant and you have a bunch of kids and they run out, or you teach them to run out of the bill or whatever really, or it all comes down to that hustle culture. It also comes down to like the gender roles as well really, of people are supposed to show mercy to women, or sometimes when a woman's with a man, he has to pay for her and then her friends really, or there was this other video of this woman who dated a guy really, and what she did was she was like, oh well, I want to order 5 or 6 dinners and I want to bring it home to my kids really, and then being like, okay, what's wrong with this man really? He's not letting my kids be fed really. He's a piece of shit really, because he's letting kids starve really. No, it's because this woman's an entitled, bitch and whatever, really. Because, and that's also another issue that she talked about in this video as well, really, is that sometimes there's entitlement. As far as, what men are supposed to do. Men are supposed to pay for the mamas. Men are supposed to pay for the mama and the kids when that's not their kids. or when it's even like a first date, and then they say, "But we want to bring food home to the kids." And some people think that it's because that sexist role of men are supposed to be providers, or when you watch shows like Everybody Hates Chris and other things like that, you see the role of young black men, and young black men are supposed to, just take shit from black women and stuff like that. And then people wonder why there's a lot of interracial couples, and there's a lot of people like who don't want to date black women and stuff like that because of some of these stereotypes that are being taught, really, of, women are not supposed to, women are supposed to, have their kids, have like their 6 or 7 kids be like paid for, and you take, you buy dinner for your, girlfriend or the woman that you're dating, she brings 5 or 6 people along, you pay for everybody and everything like that, and they're expected to be like, you're expected to throw away money, really. That's one of the reasons why, why that doesn't attract the men, really. And also, too, like, I always will tell people, like, it doesn't matter who you, what race or whatever, always date a woman, always date somebody with a job, really. That's man, woman, whatever gender you're attracted to. Always date people with jobs. Make sure that they have high-paying jobs as well, really. I work at a hospital, so I would only date, people who work at hospitals as well, really. I would not date somebody who, I would not just date somebody who has no job or whatever, really, because I'd be like, what, then, I got to pay for everything, really. I got to go to the store, buy your Max Pads and your tampons. I got to do this thing, that thing, really. And that's not a good relationship, because that teaches that role that men are supposed to provide for their women, really. And women can't fend for themselves, that, you want to have somebody, you want to have a partner that works like 40 hours a week or 60 hours a week, and does other things as well, really, because then you're not going to be taken advantage of. Everything doesn't fall on you, because I've known plenty of people of all races where they kind of are in roles where the man goes to work and the woman spends all the money, really. It's just like, the Jetsons when George Jetson, hands his wife a 20, she takes the whole wallet, he has a 20, and that's that, really, So yeah, you don't want that situation, really. But that comes down to restaurants and dining out and everything like that, where there's a sense of just like, you're supposed to be paid for, you're supposed to hustle your man, you're supposed to take advantage of your man, and all that stuff, really. And that's just not, and that doesn't attract the right crowd, really. And then the last thing I'll say is bad eating and excessive eating. And also, too, that's in a lot of different communities, but that's definitely an issue in the black community, because definitely when you look at a lot of movies, there are still those stereotypes of black people love fried chicken, or black people love like deep fried food, or excessively bad or bad food like ribs or macaroni and cheese or other things like that. And it kind of stems from a lot of different stuff. That, first of all, when you look at a lot of television, a lot of times you see a lot of African Americans with bad diets. Like, for example, Carl Winslow. He'd rather have the lasagna over, a colossal piece of broccoli. He sneaks donuts when he was forced to go on a diet. He kept his health issues from his wife, really, because he didn't want to be eating crappy food. You look at Jules from Everybody Hates Chris, really, he wants to eat whatever he wants, really, but his wife forces him to eat, fried chicken with all the chicken skins peeled. And then you also kind of see how she does that because she knows it's under her skin, really. Like, she's doing that for her ego trip. Or you look at Fat Albert. That's in the name, Fat Albert. You look at, Dr. Hibbert from The Simpsons. He's a fat black guy. You look at Chef from South Park. He cooks unhealthy dishes, but he's also overweight and a cook, really. So there's a lot of examples in black media of African Americans, just being overweight, having bad health issues. And I've kind of said it before, that probably one of the reasons why that happens is because this is supposed to encourage black people to have that type of eating habit. Oh, well, eat unhealthy, drink all the Kool-Aid, have all the fried chicken, have all the soul food, have all the stuff that you want, really, because that way, when you're 40, 50, 60, 70, you have health issues, they slam you into a hospital, and then, your savings is going to your hospital bills, or it's also just going to, or the government's going to be paying the hospitals, and that's how they make their money. So it's always been advertised for black people to have bad health, really, or go to restaurants and excessively eat, excessively drink, excessively have like bad foods and whatever, really. So you have to understand you're being manipulated. But also too, when you look at the Carnival cruises, like I think they said something like there was unlimited drinks and now it went down to like 21 drinks a day or something like that. And they call those the ghetto cruises. And it's almost like, who really needs 20 drinks in a day, really? So, like definitely, and as I said, it's not just black people, it's an American culture. It's a culture of excess. It's a culture of hustling. It's a culture of, taking advantage of people. And it's not just, but definitely too, when you look at black stereotypes in black media and behavior that you see with black stereotypes and black media. And when I mean black stereotypes, I mean like, like as I said, like, watching films like, a lot of Tyler Perry films where it's really supposed to be about a man coming in and saving a woman, like he's supposed to take care of her, or Everybody Hates Chris, where you see like a black woman boss around a man, or you kind of see, as I said, about like a lot of like television shows, there's usually a black man eating food that's unhealthy for him, or you see a lot of like that hustle culture, where then it sparks people to go to restaurants, dine and dash, or bring or be like, oh well, it's not just for me. I need a dish for my kids. Or I need to bring my girlfriends along, and I expect the man to pay for it and other shit like that. So it's ultimately being inspired by a lot of just bad culture, really. And you gotta find the good influences.